So again, introduction is Title I Part C is part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, which is under our office, which is the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support, the Division of Consolidated Plans and Audits. So we're issuing this RFA, which is our request for application, to any of the local education agencies. There's a lot of acronyms. So LEAs, public universities, colleges, some of you all are from different ones of those, to develop and implement this technical assistance professional learning programs to facilitate the educational support services needed for identifying migrant children and their families. So this is what the Migrant Education Program is about. If you want more information, we're under Title I Part A. Here's your statutory requirements. Title I Part C is underneath Title I Part A. Here's our regulatory requirements and non-regulatory guidance. So you can always look back to those for our authorities. So first we'll get started with funding. According to the RFA, the Kentucky Department of Education, KDE, anticipates funding for up to 4 regional service centers for up to $325,000 per year per regional center. KDE reserves the right to negotiate annually the amount based upon the regional center subcontracts with the LEAs and or any identified or anticipated needs within the region. So again, those allocations can change and can fluctuate. Any LEA funded as a regional center will not have a standalone program allocation or part of the consortium's allocation, but be served underneath the regional center. So that means if you are a standalone district and they have enough for funding, that standalone district will be served under the regional service center, and that standalone district will not get their own allocation. The funds oh, go on.
I'm sorry. I just wanted everybody to know. I thought you were wrapping up there.
Oh, sorry. No, reading the last sentence.
No worries. No worries. I just want everybody to know, if you have your chat boxes open, I will be posting the page number in the RFA application that we are currently talking about, so you can keep up with that if you are going through that application with us. I'm sorry, Christina.
Oh, no, you're perfect. Thank you. So the funds generated by the LEA will be included in your negotiation for the regional center. So typically what happens is your regional center, if you look at your map that's on the site, KDE's website under Migrant Education, there are some districts that have their own standalone program, and then the other districts do not have standalone programs. That's where the negotiation amount comes from. So here's our regional service map. So depending on what region that your fiscal agent would be in, that would be the region that you would be applying for. So you can see here's the Western region and the area that they encompass. The districts that are in this dark green, those are the ones that are the consortium. So you have, well, sorry, I apologize. The dark green ones are the standalone programs. So Webster and Christian are standalones. The other ones make up the consortiums. So Mayfield and Graves is a consortium. Logan and Russellville is a consortium. Todd and Muhlenberg would be one. And Davies and Owensboro and Ohio and McLean. So that's how you would kind of look at that map. All those other districts, we call them the white districts, or the thank you, Dwayne, help me with that word. Non-standalone districts. I apologize. Yes. Our non-standalone districts, that's where your negotiation amount comes from, where you will get more than the $325,000 base. So in your central region, same thing. You have more standalone regions or standalone districts: Warren, Barron, Monroe, Clinton, Adair, and then you have one consortium, Washington, Marion. In your southern region, you have your standalone districts, which are that darker pinkish color. Your consortium is Pulaski, Somerset, and then you have one with Berea and Madison County. And then last but not least is our northern region up at the top. They have the standalone ones, or that brighter orange, and your consortium, you only have one, which is Bourbon and Paris. So again, just be familiar with your areas, because when you apply, you will have to note which of the regions you are applying for. So again, this just reiterates kind of what I just told you with your standalone and non-standalone programs, which ones are the consortiums. I went over those. So this is on here, so you can kind of refer back to that to reference which ones you're looking for. So funding, KDE reservation of rights to negotiate the base amount for the regions. So again, right now we're anticipating 4 regional service centers up to 325,000 per region. KDE reserves the right to negotiate these amounts annually based upon the regional subcontracts with the LEAs or identified unanticipated needs. So again, if there's different needs, we could end up giving regions different amounts, that type of thing. So that's kind of reserved for our right, depending on how much we get from the feds, et cetera. Go on, Dwayne, we're good. And then same thing like oh, you're fine. Any region funded by, or any LEA funded as a regional center, again, what we mentioned before, will not have a standalone program. Those allocations that district would get will go straight to that regional allocation. So if they're part of a consortium, if one of you are part of Pulaski and Somerset, you would not be part of that consortium anymore. Those allocations would be part of the region, for instance. And it said the funds generated by the LEA will be included in the region. So this is just a funding-based example so you can see where your allocation would come from. You get a base for 325,000. The district amount, depending on what the districts make, if you have 30,000 for a district, 12,500 and 13,000, you add all those amounts up with your base salary, and you're going to get a base, or not a base, but a new allocation of 380,500. So this would be your whole thing. When you get ready to do your proposal, you're going to base it on that 325,000, but do keep in mind you will get additional amounts based upon that negotiation. Once the negotiation, the regional center will need to complete an annual budget for review, which is approved by KDE Migrant Education Program staff. So again, for the RFA purpose, you're going to do that 325 because that's guaranteed. And then once you get your RFA and you get awarded your grant, then you're going to get to do a budget based upon the 325 and the additional negotiation amount. So you will end up having that whole budget, which has to get approved by KDE. Funds will be dispersed on a reimbursement basis, will be subject to submission of detailed invoices, quarterly expenditure reports, KDE expense report form, and migrant staff personal activity reports. So what happens at KDE, you'll work with finance, you'll end up submitting these. I believe most of them submit them about quarterly. And when they submit the expenditures, they have to fill out an expense report form that KDE has. And also we usually look at all of the expenditures like at 0610, which is a general supply fund. If you're familiar with Munis, if your facility uses something besides Munis, that's completely fine. We will look at any of those general supply type codes. We may ask for purchase orders or receipts and review those as well. It also says that migrant staff personal activity reports. So anybody that is 100% paid by migrant will fill out what's called a semi-annual form twice a year. Or if they are partially paid by migrant, they'll fill out what's called a PAR report or personal activity report. Funding initial award period. So again, for this RFA, the initial award period is from July 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2024. After that award period, there will be additional ones that we could do. So again, the first year is going to be available July 1st, 2022. Those funds must be spent by September 30th, 2023. The second year funds, again, will be available in July 2023, must be spent by September the following year, September 30th, 2024. And then the dates are tentative, subject to change based upon the release of funds from the U.S. Department of Education. Typically, we have always gotten our funds around July 1st, so typically it hasn't been an issue, but just in case, we are based upon the Department of Education when they give us the money. So possible funding extensions. With this RFA, you will get some extensions. So those are the initial ones. You get those initial 2 years, but it says 2 additional 1-year periods if it is in the best interest of the Kentucky Migrant Education Program and its eligible students to do so. So if things are going well, the regional centers are doing a good job, KDE has their discretion to go on and give you an additional 1 year. So this contract could feasibly last up to 3 to 4 years. Each renewal period shall be subject, oh, sorry, Dwayne, go back. Each renewal period shall be subject to prior approval from the Secretary of Finance, Administration Cabinet prior to review by the Government Contract Review Committee and contingent upon available funding. So again, just depends on how much funding we have and how things work out that way. But that is an option that we're allowed to have those additional 1-year periods. Funding purpose and funding, the purpose of funding. So funding for this project will be used to ensure that all eligible migrant students through the comprehensive identified and recruitment efforts have a fair, equitable, and significant opportunity to obtain a high quality education and reach at a minimum proficiency on challenging state academic achievement standards and state academic assessments. Additionally, funds will be used to ensure migratory students are eligible out-of-school youth have access to the appropriate support services to facilitate their continued education. Example, food banks, health nutrition services, educational supplies. So again, the purpose of this is we want to help bridge those gaps for these students. We want to help with the challenging state academic achievements, make sure that they can do well in K-Prep, ACT, and again, with our out-of-school youth, help them with anything they need help, educational services, going back to school, food banks, referrals to your health nutrition services, etc. So the State Education Agency, which is KDE, the SEA, will formally evaluate each awarded migrant education program center before the end of each year of funding. For programs found not in compliance with migrant education program requirements, the SEA reserves the right to discontinue funding for the second and third years of the contract. Periodic reviews of finances and services will be conducted by KDE staff. So we do evaluations each year, usually around May. We'll go through all the finances and stuff quarterly when those invoices come in, and then we'll go through services and we'll go through all of this information to make sure that the regional centers are doing what they're supposed to do as part of this RFA and as part of their contract. So the closeout plan submission, any awarded subgrantee must provide a closeout plan within 90 days of the end of the initial term to KDE. The plan must adhere to the applicable requirements from 200.3.13 of the Uniform Administrative Requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements of the Federal Awards Uniform Guidance. So if one of our current regional service centers will no longer be with us and we'll be getting a new one, they will provide us with a closeout plan within 90 days. So we will know what's happening. Same thing if we get new ones, you guys that would get selected that may not get renewed the next time would provide us with this closeout plan within 90 days on how we can make sure that services continue to those students. All right, Dwayne, do you want to take regional center program requirements?
Sure. All right. So in order to be an LEA or in order to sponsor a regional center, you must be an LEA, an educational co-op, or a public university or college within one of the identified regions. And since our map covers the entire state of Kentucky, as long as you fall inside Kentucky, that would be appropriate. You also will need to have some knowledge of the migrant worker lifestyle as defined under the ESSA, the current educational K-12 law that governs our work. And so we'll want you to demonstrate that in the application. Minimum eligibility requirements and subcontractor requirements. We have some districts who do not earn sufficient money to have their own standalone program. And of course, the regional centers are particularly have an interest in that because their additional negotiated funding comes from the non-standalone districts. If you have some districts that are close to that cutoff, and for the purposes of the migrant program, that cutoff is $55,500 of earnings in the migrant population. All subcontracted programs that earn more than that in migrant funding will be required to complete an annual application with region assistance and satisfy Parent Advisory Council requirements. If the subcontracted district employs an advocate or recruiter, it must complete an annual ID&R plan. That's identification and recruitment. The purpose of subcontracting with districts is to build strong, independent migrant education programs. So some of these programs that are very close, for example, to the 55,500 cutoff, okay, may not be ready to have their own program. So they're going to subcontract with the region to provide additional supports while they are, kind of getting up and running. For example, a district might provide tutoring to its migrant students, but will turn to the region to provide identification and recruitment services. Okay, so that's called a subcontract, where the district is only providing part of the migrant education program, the region providing the other part. And so we have this specific situation where we ask that even if a district might have slightly more than 55.5 in earnings, if they choose to be a subcontracted district, they still have to complete an application, and if they are doing recruiting, then they also need to have an ID&R plan on file with KDE. Additional minimum eligibility requirements. Here, this is on page 5 of the RFA. I'm trying to keep up with that. There we go. You have to have policies and procedures in place to address student safety, to include, and this is not limited to, transportation policies, student pickup policies, background checks for volunteers, etc. These are fairly standard in school districts now, but you must have those policies in place. These should be made available at KDE request. Also, you will have to have either a data universal numbering system number with the federal government, or a unique entity identifier number. The DUNS numbers, those of you who are involved with finances, the DUNS numbers are shifting over to UEI numbers here in the next few months. And so as that process goes, you will have one or the other of those numbers, but you must have one or the other of those numbers in order to apply. And you also must be registered in the system for award management, and there's a link in the PowerPoint for that. Fiscal agency responsibilities, there are several here. Communications and fiscal requirements. We expect you to maintain regular communications with the state education agency, the local education agencies with and without a program within the region, and other education agencies and educational programs within your region. Manage regional center budget, including payroll, expenditure, and personal activity reports. Fiscal agents must provide office space within the property of the organization for the program. However, prorated costs may be charged to the program. Indirect costs may not exceed the restricted rate for the fiscal agent, which is 8%. However, if indirect costs are charged to the program, no office rental or utilities may be charged to the program. So you can either charge a prorated utility or office rentals amount, or you can take indirect costs up to 8%, but you cannot take both. And so that is something that you'll need to determine in your finance department. Additional responsibilities, KDE migrant staff will be consulted annually regarding evaluations of regional migrant personnel, including the region coordinator, recruiters, advocates, and clerks. All migrant staff must be evaluated annually using the fiscal agent's evaluation process. These evaluations must be made available to appropriate state education agency migrant program staff upon request. And the regional centers do work closely with KDE. We expect collaboration with the state educational agency on the regional center staff job descriptions, and we have provided examples of those in the appendix in the RFA, and that's all they are, is examples. Salaries must be consistent with certified and classified staff within the organization, within the fiscal agency, based on rank and years experience. Salaries for certified and classified staff must be based on the salary schedules of the organization or an LEA closest to the organization. They should include the opportunity for incremental raises over time. The grant will also pay for all required benefits. These salary schedules must be shared with KDE with the RFA submission. So when you send your submission in, part of that package will be those salary schedules. We expect the fiscal agents to monitor and approve travel across the region, including the equitable recruitment stipulation in the region, within the state or to national meetings. We want you to provide the ability for flexible scheduling, including nights, weekends, and holidays, particularly for our recruitment staff. There are necessities that require them to be out and about on weekends, for example, or after 5 p.m. in some cases. And so we would expect you to provide a flexible option for their schedule. We want you to maintain accurate records and data collection and entry in various software applications. For example, Microsoft Office, MIS 2000, which is the Migrant database, Infinite Campus, etc. Technology in the regional center must be the most current available, including hardware, software, and broadband capacity. Now, we've had that can include anything as long as it can run MIS 2000, Microsoft Word, and the Microsoft packages, etc. We aren't stipulating any particular kind or type of technology, but it must be able to run all of the required software. Regional center job descriptions include, though they are not limited to, a regional coordinator, regional recruiters, a regional clerk, and a regional advocate. Each region must have a full-time clerk and coordinator. Full-time positions are to be no less than 210 days annually. Salaries must reflect the time worked. The position descriptions of the advocate and recruiter may overlap. For example, you may have an advocate recruiter who does a little bit of both things. It is preferred that all recruiters be bilingual in English and Spanish. Advocates are encouraged to be bilingual in English and Spanish as well. The need for additional staff, including part-time summer school staff, will be determined through the annual budget process. And regional center responsibilities. Do you want me to continue or do you want to take this, Christina?
Whatever works. I'm fine either way.
Okay. I tell you what, I'll do this one. I'll let you do the next one.
Can do.
Let's see here. Regional center responsibilities, monitoring of LEAs with local migrant education programs. So these would be the programs that are standalone programs or that are in consortiums. The region has responsibility for monitoring those programs. So you will be expected to monitor all LEAs with standalone or consortium migrant education programs as designated by the SEA. Or local education agencies where the regional center has subcontracted services within the regional boundaries. The regional center will uniformly use a monitoring tool developed and adopted by the state education agency. You will then send each district an action needed form developed and adopted by the state education agency as well, which reflects the findings of the monitoring process.
And
Go ahead.
also on that, I do want to say it's not just findings, but you will also include recommendations and some of the positive things that you saw
Yeah.
during the monitoring as well.
We would ask that you would participate as requested in state education agency monitoring of standalone or consortium migrant programs. The state also conducts some of those monitoring visits annually as well. All supporting documentation for the district monitoring visits will be submitted to the KYMEP on time according to the deadline specified by KDE. So each year we have this cycle where we monitor programs and we ask that the evidence and notes and so forth are submitted in a timely fashion.
The other thing I do want to say to that is any of the districts that KDE monitors, which is typically 6 a year, the regions will not have to monitor those 6. They would monitor all the ones that were not monitored by KDE.
Also, we would ask that you provide annual regional professional learning on the Kentucky Migrant Education Program Service Delivery Plan to all districts with identifiable migrant populations, both those with standalone or consortium programs and programs that are subcontracted under the regional center. All right, go ahead.
One thing I was going to note is if you notice on here, it says the MEP Service Delivery Plan 2022. We are in the process of finishing that. So your application that you're filling out for the RFA will be based upon last year's. It's done every 3 years, so it's based upon last SDP. That's what you'll be writing on. But part of your deliverables or part of your actions, if you get the contract, will be moving forward on the new one. Most of the time it doesn't change, but if you are selected, we will go through guidance and training and stuff on the new SDP and how that works.
It is expected that you will provide technical assistance to standalone or consortium programs in the completion of the annual grant application. Each year, typically in the spring, there is an annual grant application that standalone or consortium districts have to complete. This will also include some of the subcontracted districts going forward, as was noted earlier. We would ask that you participate and serve on state education agency comprehensive needs assessment and service delivery plan committees. And as Christina just noted, we're in that process right now for the next SDP. And so as those process through occasionally, we would ask your participation in that work. Please provide appropriate evidence for progress toward meeting the measurable program outcomes as listed in the service delivery plan. Part of the SDP are specific outcomes that we seek for the migrant students in Kentucky. And so part of our work is to determine whether or not we're meeting those goals. And so we would ask each year you will be prompted to provide evidence toward that.
And if you need copies of the SDP, that is on our KDE website, so you can look through there and it will show your MPOs, your measurable program outcomes on there as well.
We would ask that you provide continued professional learning on recruitment techniques and strategies to recruitment staff within all districts with identifiable migrant populations, both those with standalone or consortium programs and those that are subcontracted under the regional center. You will coordinate with the state education agency on training new recruiters within the region and ensure that they complete the KYMEP new recruiter training in person or in our Google Classroom. And we do have a process that we follow for all new recruiters. Continuing, we would ask that you assist with the training on the electronic certificate of eligibility that must be used by each local education agency and regional recruiter. We would ask that you train and guide recruiters on how to identify and recruit migrant children and how to make appropriate eligibility determinations. We would ask that you implement a formal process using an online mapping tool to map all areas within your region. That would be non-standalone districts, all those white districts on the map, if you'll recall. These maps should include current and former migrant addresses and other collaborative partners that may need to be submitted to KDE. So what we're looking for is geographic data on where migrant families have been in the past and where they currently are, so that we can direct recruiting efforts more efficiently. Also, we would ask that you develop a regional identification and recruitment plan with procedures to effectively identify and recruit all eligible migrant children in the region. This will be submitted to KDE annually. We would ask that you evaluate the implementation of your IDNR plan and submit the results to the Kentucky Migrant Education Program. You will provide technical assistance to standalone or consortium programs to develop, implement, and evaluate individual district or consortium consortium identification and recruitment plans. Finally, the region will deploy recruiters to carry out regional identification and recruitment efforts, or as requested by the state education agency, statewide identification and recruitment efforts, and then you will monitor those efforts as well. We would ask that you implement quality control procedures designed to ensure the accuracy of recruiters' eligibility determinations and written eligibility documentation. And you would participate annually in the state education agency re-interview process. We would ask that you will follow up and report to the state education agency data generated from regional re-interviews, and that you would participate in any state education agency organized recruitment blitz as requested. And we do occasionally do those, of course, as we're coming out of the COVID age. We'll see how that goes forward. We would ask that you assist LEAs in providing parent engagement activities for families with migrant students. Assist in the establishment of a parent advisory council in each of the LEAs or consortiums and in each subcontracted LEA that meets regularly as directed by the service delivery plan. We would ask that you respond to requests from LEAs and the state education agency in a timely manner following SEA established protocols. You will develop and implement a summer program for secondary students, that's grades 6 through 12, focused on academic achievement and college career readiness. These summer programs must show collaboration with a community college, a four-year college, or a university. Secondly, preference should be given to opportunities that allow students to have a full college-like experience, including staying overnight in a dorm room, taking part in programs, and learning about the college experience. Also, various career-ready opportunities for students should be included throughout the summer program. The summer programs must include, your overall summer program must include preschool, elementary age, and secondary students, and where applicable, out-of-school youth. Priority for service students, that's K-12 students, who are priority for service, must receive academic services during the summer, either directly from a migrant staff member or as facilitated by migrant staff members. We would ask that you develop and implement learning programs for all eligible youth, including preschool and out-of-school youth within the region. That you would participate in various consortium projects, including appropriate data as requested by the SEA, and that you would attend state education agency facilitated meetings or others as requested. We would ask that you participate in the planning and implementation of any statewide professional learning activities, including but not limited to the annual Migrant Education Fall Academy. And Christina, I'll turn this over to you.
So the format requirements are very important when you get ready to submit this application in. Failure to follow these formatting requirements may deem your application non-responsive, so make sure that you do go through and you follow these exactly. All pages must be single-sided. Pages should have side, top, and bottom margins of 1 inch. Pages must be double-spaced. The text should be 12-point font and Arial or some similar typeface. Please do not use condensed or narrow typeface. Pages must be numbered consecutively with the table of contents as page 1. Please do not number the application cover page. The headings must be included for each part of the application. The headings should align with the application components on pages 9 through 10. The total application, excluding the cover page and the tentative budget and your salary sheets, should not exceed 34 pages. So any pages submitted beyond that requirement not to exceed limits will not be reviewed. The application components. So this is your cover page. You should have that as well. You'll just go through and fill that out, your DUNS number, your IEU number, I think it was. Make sure all that information's filled out when you send that in. Then you have your table of contents. Make sure that you have that submitted next to your cover sheet when you get ready to submit your final RFA or your final application. Application components. So these are the different components that will help you get the score, which we will review. So first thing we look at is your background knowledge of the migrant lifestyle. So this is not to exceed 3 pages. Within this section, you should identify the region that you are applying for, which we talked about on the map, which one you're going to talk about how you're able to verify and have the ability to subcontract. Include a statement identifying the length of the fiscal agent's previous experience with the migrant education program. Discuss the unique needs of the migrant students and how the fiscal agent will manage the migrant education program to address those needs. And finally, include how you will keep track of expenditures from those subcontracts and provide monitoring to the districts. So how are you going to be able to maintain all this stuff, and what are you going to be able to do with that fiscal agent that you're applying with? This would be the criteria that we'll be scoring with. Again, if you don't have any previous background with the migrant program, you have no knowledge of it, you get confused between migrant and immigrants, you'll get 0 to 1 points. Limited experience working with them, minimal to limited understanding, migrant lifestyle, but you show the ability to learn, you'll get 2 points. You have extensive experience working with migrants, extensive understanding of the lifestyle, willingness and ability to provide expertise, you'll get 3. And then the next part we talk about, you have to mention which district or which region you're applying for. If you don't, you'll get 0. If you do, you'll get a point. And you don't verify the ability to subcontract, you'll get 0. But if you do tell us how you're going to subcontract, you'll get a point for that as well. So your maximum points on this section would be 5. The next component would be identification recruitment. So this section is not to exceed 3 pages as well. So summarize the tentative ID&R plan, how the plan will be evaluated to identify and recruit migrant students across all parts of the region, including a timeline includes summer recruiting. The recruiting plan should include specific plans for recruiting OSYs, your out-of-school youth, your preschool children not in school, and your K through 12 students. The recruiting plan should also include strategies for using your nights and weekends, the timeframes to expand recruiting opportunities. Note areas that have not had migrant students and how you will maintain communication among those districts in your region. So if you look back at previous maps or you've researched and stuff and you know certain areas have never had migrant students, how are you going to maintain communication with those districts to ensure that it's opened up and you're going to be able to share about the migrant program with them if you have? And again, here's your scoring. Again, if you minimally discuss recruitment of students, recruitment plans limited to student population and large standalone consortium programs, there's no explanation of it. then you're going to get 0 to 1 points. Fiscal agent doesn't have a clear plan on ongoing evaluation of the plan, you'll get 0 to 1. And again, if your plan has no strategies designed for summer, you'll get 0 to 1. Same thing if your plan doesn't mention anything about how you're reaching those non-standalone districts, you can get 0 to 1 points. If your plan does mention everything and talks about your standalone consortium programs, mentions minimal discussion in your low project areas, partial discussion about your evaluation, but still doesn't include a timeline, you could get 2 to 3 points. Now, again, finally, you could get 3 to 5 points if you mention the process development, evidence, sources involved in evaluating throughout the region. You include recruiting logs, employee calendars, how you're using agricultural surveys, district infinite campus, all the different criteria that you're using to help with recruiting in that area, then you'll get the maximum points. Is it frozen on your end?
It should say scoring criteria, identification, and recruitment continued.
Oh, continued. That's why I'm confused. Sorry. I apologize. So the recruitment plan specifies summer strategies. Again, not included in all standalones. You'll get 2 to 3 points. The recruiting plan indicates awareness of the needs of communication with your low census areas. It's very detailed. You'll get 2 to 3. Now, again, your 4 to 5 points, you fully understand. You can discuss your plan. You know how you're going to recruit your preschools, your OSYs, your K through 12. You mention nights and weekends. You talk about your timeline. You talk about your activities. You could get 4 to 5 points. If you end up doing, the fiscal agent clearly articulates a process for using evidence to assess the effectiveness of the MEP recruiting efforts through an annual cycle. The program evaluation provides evidence of reflection on the data presented in evidence sources. That would be 6 to 10 points. Recruiting plan includes effective strategies for summer recruiting, including specific strategies for all populations, including preschool, out of school youth, and K through 12, and the use of nights and weekends. You could get up to 4 to 5 points. And the last one, the recruiting plan has a detailed plan for communicating with all school districts in the region, including low census and non-standalone districts. Again, you could get 4 to 5 points on that. So the rubric will just help you go through to see how much information you need to put in there and in what areas. So the next part is understanding of the current SDP. Again, because we do not have the 2022 one out, this is based upon your understanding of the 2018 SDP. So be sure you note that. This section is not to exceed 7 pages. So this section, you need to explain how the fiscal agent will ensure that each of the required goals within the service delivery plan would be met and monitored, demonstrating a clear connection between program activities and desired results. So explain how your region will conduct an annual self-evaluation of its program, focusing on the required components of the SDP. And then this would be how you would be scored. If you are unable to demonstrate or demonstrates limited ability to affect the implementation of the KMEP SDP goals, monitoring progress toward these goals, you'll get 0 to 1 points. If you're able to, with training assistance, demonstrate the ability to implement a program to reach the KYMEP SDP goals successfully, the fiscal agent has a plan to adequately monitor the progress of regional programs toward these goals, you could get 2 to 3. Finally, you could get 4 to 5 points if you are full ability to monitor the implementation of the SDP strategies across your whole region. The fiscal agent has a clear plan to evaluate progress toward performance goals annually and shows the ability to make appropriate changes in practice when necessary. So the summer plan. Summer is a new component that we really want to focus on this time. This one should not exceed 6 pages. Provide a plan for recruiting students into the summer MEP. Summarize a tentative plan for summer programming for your secondary age students, which are your grades 6 through 12. Students that focus on academic achievements as addressed in the state MEP or measurable program outcomes and college career transition skills. The plan may include prepackaged purchased materials and curriculum. The summer programming should include a minimum of 25 hours of instructional services for all students K through 12 from non-standalone districts. So again, the region's focusing on your non-standalone. The standalone districts will do their own summer program. You're focusing on all the other ones. You're good. Include how the program will collaborate with community college, four-year college, or university to provide a unique overnight on-campus experience for secondary 6 through 12 students from standalone and non-standalone districts. Hours spent on this environment will count toward the 25-hour requirement for these students. So some of the regions that you all may have a lot of students, 6 through 12, you may want to divide this up into two different camps, one that's middle school, one that's high school. You could talk about that. If you did something like that, you're only required to at least have one do with the college and university. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks with it, but make sure that something in your program for your 6 through 12 students addresses this college and university on-campus experience. Explain how the program will include transition. So some of them are doing college, career, military, job planning. How are you going to include that into your summer program and make sure that the planning and the skills are included as well? And again, here's your scoring criteria. If you minimally discuss recruitment of the students in the summer, the recruitment plan is limited to student population in only the large standalone districts or consortiums, you're going to get 0 to 1 points. If the primary focus of the summer program is reading comprehension and math computation, the plan relies primarily on paper pencil activities, focuses on memorization and repetition. Again, you may purchase a program, but you're having the kids sit down at a desk and do that type of thing, you may get 0 to 1 points. If there's no plan for middle school, high school about your summer program, it doesn't talk about any collaboration with your 2-year or 4-year secondary institution, you're going to get 0 to 1 points. 2 to 3 points. You're going to discuss the plan of recruiting your students in the standalone or consortium programs and the subcontract programs into the summer program. You're going to focus on summer program, including ACT skills, enrichment activities, maybe include some project team building, multiple opportunities to assess and analyze their knowledge to apply it. The summer program will include their 25 hours of instruction for K through 12 and also may include a purchase plan or purchase program. Again, continuing, summer selected middle school, high school students are offered the opportunity to take part in overnight. So that's 2 to 3 points. 4 to 5 is they fully understand and discuss the plan to recruit students across the region, regardless of district or residency, into summer program plan includes the equitable recruitment of all eligible preschool, elementary, middle, and high school and OSY. So they fully understand it. Summer programming includes at least 25 hours instructional services for K through 12 students. Fiscal agent provides a pre and post test assessment intended to measure skill growth during the summer. Services for preschool students and out of school youth are delineated. So that's 4 to 5 points. And finally, all middle school and high school students in the region are offered the opportunity to participate in overnight on-campus field trip experience to a 2-year or 4-year post-secondary institute. This camp experience will include a focus on transition ready skills, so 4 to 5 points. The preschool plan is not to exceed 3 pages. So again, look at your SDP, explain how the fiscal agent is going to identify, recruit, and serve all your students ages birth through 5, not in kindergarten. So these are the ones that are still in preschool, or they may be the ones that are still staying at home with mom and dad. So your preschool plan, if you minimally discuss how you're identifying and recruiting these students, you'll get 0 to 1. Your plan is limited to serving preschool age children once at the time of recruitment. Plan primarily involves providing immediate needs, so that's 0 to 1. 2 to 3 points, your plan discusses identifying recruitment of preschool age children. Plan includes a minimal discussion of recruitment in low incident areas. Plan limited to serving preschool children with referrals for social services and other preschool programs is another 2 to 3 points. But you can get 4 to 5 points if you thoroughly discuss the plan on how you can identify and recruit preschool age children throughout the entire region, not just low incident areas, but all of it. 4 to 5 points if the plan integrates academic services for all students, including those who do not attend a preschool program. Plan also includes non-academic lessons focused on age-appropriate social development. And then you have an out-of-school youth plan. So this one is specifically for your out-of-school youth, and it should not exceed 3 pages. So your fiscal agent will identify, recruit, and serve the out-of-school youth according to your service delivery plan. If they do this, there should be a rubric on the next page. There it is. So minimal discussion, they'll get 1 point. If they plan limited serving OSY students once at the time of recruitment, but plan primarily observes providing immediate needs, 0 to 1 points. If you discuss a plan to identify and recruit OSYs, plan includes a minimal discussion of recruitment in low incident areas, they'll get 2 points. Plan limited to serving OSYs with referrals for social work, services may be indicated less than monthly, it'll get 2 points. And finally, if you want your 3 to 4 points, the fiscal agent fully understands and discusses a plan to identify and recruit OSYs across the entire region. The plan integrates monthly academic and non-academic lessons. The plan distinguishes lessons between OSY students that are here to work and recovery students, which are kind of what we call our dropout students. They've dropped out of school and they're kind of low dropping out, but they need to go back to school. So those are your recovery youth. And then your parent-family engagement. Again, parents are always very important. We want to make sure that they're engaged in the program. This section should not exceed 4 pages. You need to identify federal, state, and local partners, collaborative partners, including the type of program and primary target groups. Explain how this organization will support parent projects within your region, including implementation of your Parent Advisory Council or your PAC. Discuss how the fiscal agent will work with parents to increase the level and type of engagement using I2 Impact Consortium. Again, we have some of that in the appendix. This is one of the consortiums, part of the federal government that we are currently in, that has to do with family and parent engagement. And here are some of the scores for this one. So partnership are not included in the application. You'll get 0 to 1. Your parent engagement is limited to parent involvement activities. But if you get a little bit more points if the partnerships are limited to those directly associated with the organization. Your Parent Advisory Council or your PAC is noted with limited understanding. Parent involvement activities are discussed, but various levels of parent engagement are mentioned. You'll get 4 to 5 points, which is your maximum. Partnership extended beyond your organization, including partnership with unique and varied backgrounds. Discussion of parent partnership, parent involvement, and PAC is integrated into the application. There's a focus on helping parents take greater ownership of their engagement with the migrant program. So how are you going to get parents involved and take ownership?
And just to clarify on this section, parent involvement and the parent advisory function are 2 separate functions, and that's why we're addressing it this way. Parent involvement, if you would imagine, is parents receiving information. Parent advisory work is parents giving feedback and putting information into the program. And so we'll want you to document both of those processes as part of the application.
And then the fun part is you have a budget narrative. So your budget narrative should not exceed 4 pages. So you're going to create a tentative general budget detailing how the allocated funds would be distributed across the center's needs. So the budget structure may vary. However, an example begins on this next page. Dwayne should have it written down in your chat box. You'll know what page to look for. So explain your salary schedules, how your raises, if any. Again, some institutes may or may not have raises. Totally understand. Will be included for the next 2 years. So how are you going to do that for the next 2 years? Explain how the required salary ranges are noted above and will be incorporated in the fiscal agent salary schedule. Inclusion of the salary schedule will not count against the total number of pages for this application. Explain how the grant funds will be used sufficiently to address all necessary program expenditures. Explain how additional non-grant funds could be used to implement the migrant program. Some of them you may not have non-grant funds, that's okay, but if you do have other funds to supplement, you would add that there. The fiscal agent must limit indirect cost if taken to only 8% of the grant or less. Explain how the fiscal agent will monitor budget expenditures for allowable, reasonableness, and necessity. Migrant tentative budget must include salary and your benefit cost, welfare spending, and applicable travel cost. Welfare spending will be anything that you need, food or clothing or anything to provide those welfare needs for the families. The following is a sample. However, applicants may use any format or style they desire. So again, this is just a sample. You could put down how much your coordinator advocate makes. If the coordinator is an advocate, you could. If it's separate, you could put a coordinator recruiter, how much your clerk. All these salaries should include your benefits as well. It is a minimum of 210 days. You can have more days if your fiscal agent requires or wants you to have, but it's a minimum at least 210. These are some out-of-state conferences. You're going to have to do recruiting. So that's why it says IDNR for the regional. In-state conferences, you're going to have meetings and stuff, and out-of-state travel. So that's a big thing. And other expenses. So you have welfare spending, office supplies, copier rentals. This is just suggestions. This can be changed. So again, these are just suggestions that you could put on here. Again, your budget narrative focuses on staff and travel requirements. The narrative does not correlate with the tentative budget. So if it's totally off what you're saying and what's in there, that's 0 to 1 points. The fiscal agent does not supply a salary schedule. You'll get 0 to 1. Little discussion is included to the organization's quality control procedures for expenditures, 0 to 1. And the salary schedules are not included or do not comport to the required positions of this grant. So that would be 0 to 1. You'll get 2 to 3 if the budget narrative is complete and adequate, focuses on the compliance issues. Budget narrative correlates to the tentative budget. The fiscal agent includes a salary schedule for the migrant positions, but some or all positions do not have any function for raises to be included. The organization has adequate procedures for quality control of expenditures. Salary schedules are included and cover the required positions. Schedules do not address salary step bases on experience, years of service, and or degree level. So all of those would be 2 to 3 points. The next ones will be your maximum 4 to 5 points. The budget narrative is creative and how expenditures are covered. The focus remains on the students in the program. The fiscal agent includes a fully functioning salary schedule that accounts for salaries and raises for all migrants' positions. The organization's quality control and check and balances for expenditures are shown to be efficient and beyond reproach. Salary schedules are comprehensive to the needs of the grant. Schedules include pay base on experience, years of service, and or degree level. Submission of the application. Dwayne, you're muted if you're talking. Okay.
No, I was gonna offer to do this last part.
Go forth.
All right. There we go. Okay, so the important, well, there are lots of important pieces here, but one of the very important pieces is the timeline for submission. And so here you can see we're at February 16th where we're conducting this session, and we'll be collecting some of your questions. Additional questions can be submitted again to the KDE RFP email address until 4 p.m. on March the 9th. All right. The closing of the application is 4 p.m. on April 22nd via email. Okay, we're only taking them via email. And so that's when the final cutoff for application submission or RFA submission is. And then the grant would actually begin on July 1st, 2022. So sometime between April 22nd and July 1st, we would be communicating the results of the RFA with the fiscal agents involved. All questions, including those pertaining to the budget, must be submitted via email to kderfp@education.ky.gov by 4 p.m. Eastern Time on March 9th, 2022. Responses to all questions will be posted on the KDE website on or around March 16th. It is the responsibility of the applicant to periodically review the frequently asked questions for further clarification of requirements. And so we will be posting this under the Migrant RFA posting on the KDE RFA webpage. KDE must receive applications no later than 4 p.m. Eastern Time on April 22nd, 2022 via email. Applications received after this time and date will be deemed non-responsive and will not be reviewed. A blind copy of the narrative section of the application shall also be submitted. The blind copy should not contain identifying words or names of people, districts, counties, or schools. The submission of the application, the file naming protocol, you will scan the completed application in its entirety, including all signatures, into PDF format. You will name your complete application as follows. It's going to be MEP 2022 dot the applicant organization's name, whatever your name is, dot original. So 3 section 2 dots. You're going to scan a blind copy of the narrative section of the application in its entirety to PDF format, and you will name the blind copy as follows: MEP 2022 dot your applicant organization name dot blind. So you're going to be submitting 2 different copies, the original and the blind. You'll email the complete application and the blind copy of the narrative to kderfp@education.ky.gov. On the subject line of the email, you will type MEP 2022 / the name of your organization. If possible, send both attachments. If possible, send both attachments in the same email. The date and timestamp on the received email must be on or before 4 p.m. Eastern Time, April 22nd, 2022. This is very important. Please keep in mind that email coming into the KDE is routed for security purposes through multiple networks and servers. Allow ample time for this and the possibility that email does not always send on the first try. The applicant may also request a confirmation that KDE received the application via the above email. Note that this confirmation will relate only to the receipt of the application and will not confirm that the application is complete with all required components. And finally, thank you. We appreciate your attendance today. We know this has been kind of a straightforward presentation. Thank you for the questions that have been placed into the chat room. I will leave the chat box open for another 10 minutes. It's 3:04 by my computer, so by 3:15 I will close this out. If you have any additional questions that you would like to submit via the chat box, you may do so now. If not, all other questions will need to be submitted via email. And I will post the address again in the chat box no later than March 9th at 4 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance today.
Thank you, guys.